Hi BookTube, and welcome to a new video. This is going to be a brief discussion video which launches my campaign to abolish the term autofiction. And to that end I'm wearing a dressing gown, not because I had the idea in the bath, which I did, but this is sort of go for a Noel Coward sort of look to lend this video some gravitas. By rights I should have a sort of elongated cigarette holder, but I don't smoke. But in a way, it should really be in a pipe, as in put it in your pipe and smoke it, Noel. But Noel Coward didn't smoke pipes. Anyway, why do I want to abolish the term autofiction? I want to abolish the term autofiction because it's either an oxymoron or it's a tautology. Either way, it's completely redundant. So, Annie Ernaux, who was recently announced as a Nobel laureate for literature, books such as The Years and I Remain in Darkness, and critics describe her work as autofiction. She rebuts that, and she should know because she writes it. And she rebuts it in a very trenchant, interesting way. She says virtually every single, if not all, detail in the book is drawn from her life, therefore autobiographical, hence the auto in autofiction. But the mere artifice of arranging that into a narrative renders it fiction, because it didn't happen like that. It didn't unfurl like that. It wasn't as orderly as the narrative. A narrative has to be orderly enough to communicate from an absent author to the reader, so the reader to understand what the author is saying. A shared language, a shared syntax, all that sort of thing. And Ernaux is saying that although the chronology of these events is right, the gaps in between are not taken account of. So, for example, you might go from one paragraph to another to two separate incidents. But that doesn't mean they happened within the blink of an eye. There could be days, months separating them. Particularly interesting in this one, I Remain in Darkness, because it's about her mother's Alzheimer's, which, Alzheimer's fractures one's sense of time as everything else that it fractures. So I think Ernaux definitively says that autofiction is an oxymoron. Although the material may be factual, based on one's life, based on one's autobiographical detail, the mere shaping of it into an artistic text makes it fictional. So that is autofiction as oxymoron. Autofiction as tautology is my personal belief that a writer can only write from within themselves. They can't write from stuff that's completely outside of themselves, stuff they've never experienced, they know nothing about, it forms no part of who they are. Now, it's true, a writer can read up and research something far removed from their life, but the mere fact that they have chosen to do that, the mere fact that they've imbibed what they have researched, the mere fact they have committed it to memory, the mere fact that they then work on it in order to put it in their fiction, it becomes part of their experience. Admittedly, not lived firsthand, absolutely, but significant enough to become part of their life, to take over a part of their interest, to then be fed into their creative work, all these sorts of things, means that a writer cannot write outside of themselves. Therefore, to me, everything is autofiction. The auto is completely redundant, that a writer puts themselves in every single book, in some way, shape or form. So in my case, I could point to any one of my novels and I could go, yeah, I know exactly where that came from in my life. I remember the reference, where I read this, came across it, an anecdote someone told me, which goes back to the notion of it then becomes part of my experience because I've remembered it. And what I could tell you, although it'd be very boring, is, yeah, I did no work on transforming that. That's exactly how I remembered it happened to me. Or no, I inverted it, or I distorted it, or I've tweaked it in some way so that it fits the narrative of the fiction that I'm writing. So this is why I feel that autofiction is completely redundant. So I recently finished this book by Ronald Suchanik, The Death of the Novel and Other Stories. This was written in the 60s, and in a way it is postmodern, experimentalist, both terms I reject. Autofiction. No one called it autofiction back in the day, but he is directly trying to marry up his experience of being a struggling writer with the nature of what he is writing, how much of it pertains to his life, how much of it doesn't. So, for example, one of the stories here is Sukanik is recording a conversation that he and his wife are having over Sunday dinner of roast beef. It's called Roast Beef, A Slice of Life. And he's literally transcribing their conversation. They get two columns, here, the column where he's talking and the column where his wife's talking. So on, ostensibly, that is a true life conversation being reproduced here. But of course we never know. And the wife says in the story, did she say it on tape? I don't know, I'm not privy to the tape. She says, this is the opposite of theatre, where in theatre, the playwright writes the words down to form the script, and then the actors enunciate the words in the script in their performance. Here, they are recording, they are enunciating the words in order for it to be written down in a script afterwards. And she says that makes them actors. So she's fictionalised by the mere stating that they are agents in a fiction, that they know what they're doing, that they know this conversation is being recorded, and that may or may not influence what they say. So even this, which is notionally something that really happened, something autobiographical, even that is thrown into turmoil by how it is framed and contextualised. And I think, again, points to the redundancy of the concept of autofiction. And this was back in the 60s, before anyone talked about autofiction. But just in case you think I'm picky on autofiction, I'm not. I would pick on any genre label, to be honest. So, for example, historical fiction, to me, is an oxymoron. Because if it's fictional, it can't be history. It can't be historical fact by definition. History deals with historical fact. So you're joining a pseudoscience, which we call history, together with fiction. They're like matter and antimatter. I mean, they'd explode together. If what we mean by historical fiction, fiction set in the past, even if it's with real-life historical characters, but we are imagining those characters in the work of the fiction. We are not producing autobiography, so we are not producing biography of these characters. We are trying, again, back to the notion of artifice that Ernaux spoke of. We are artfully trying to weave it into a darn good story, a darn good yarn. So, again, it's another example of the redundancy of all genre labels, I feel. Okay, so I'm going to throw that one back to you for discussion. Please feel free to disagree with me and shoot me down. I expect nothing less.